Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. We have another really interesting session. We're going to be talking about best practices for data security in the era of drone docs. Today I'm going to be a moderator. First of all, there's a few things I just want to share with you. We're going to, first of all, thank DJI and our sponsors for hosting this event. Thank you very much for Flightbase. It's been very informative so far. Been some really interesting discussions. For those that want to watch and maybe need to slip away early, this session is being recorded, so we will share this in due course. And also, we welcome any questions from the audience. We're going to have a Q&A session towards the end, so more than welcome to ask anything that is pertinent to this discussion. First and foremost, I'm going to do a few quick introductions of the esteemed guests that are with us today, and some you may be familiar with, some not. So I'll start with myself. I am the General Manager of the Drone Centre. I've been in the drone industry nearly 11 years now, with experience in Europe and now the Middle East. I'm going to move on to Vic. Please introduce yourself.
Good morning, here from Denver, Colorado. I'm Vic Moss. I'm a photographer, videographer by trade, policy wonk by choice when it comes to UAS. I'm the CEO of Drone Service Provider Alliance. We're a advocacy group for commercial drone pilots here in the States. I'm also, among other things, Citizen UAS Operator is my title for the FAA's Advanced Aviation Advisory Committee.
Thanks, Vic. Thanks for the introduction. Yeah, it's good to have you on board. Dheeraj, please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Scott. Hi, everyone. I'm Dheeraj. I'm Director of Products at Flightbase. I have been working in drone industry for about 10 years now. Majorly started with my background in robotics with a master's in robotics and computational perception from Georgia Tech, and worked in on the verge of robotics and drones for about 10 years with a lot of amazing products, and working with Flightbase for this 10 years. And I'm looking forward to this interesting discussion on data security in the era of drone docs. Yep, welcome everyone.
Awesome to have you, Dheeraj. It's going to have your technical know-how to hand. Thank you very much. Chris, it's an honor to have you with us today. Please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks for having us, Flightbase and DJI. I appreciate it. I'm Chris Fink, the founder and CEO of UVT, Unmanned Vehicle Technologies. We're based here in the United States and quickly become active in the remote operations space, deploying drone docs and other systems nationwide here in the US. It's great to be here. Thanks.
Thanks, Chris. It is good to have you here. Thank you very much. I think you and Vic go back as well, so it's good to have some synergy there. And of course, Pejman, very close contact with mine. We've known each other for some time now. It's an absolute honor to have you here, Pejman. Please introduce yourself.
My pleasure. Hi, my name is Pejman, Head of Product Management at Advanced Media. We've been in the market since 2002 in UAE and in GCC market. I'm responsible for creative solutions at Advanced Media, taking care of drone solutions as a part of that. We started working with DJI closely and some other drone manufacturers since 2012. Very happy to be here.
We've got such a plethora of knowledge here that we're going to pick brains with today. So we've got some very challenging questions, some controversial. So I hope everyone watching today is going to enjoy this session. I'm going to start off with Dheeraj. I've got some really interesting questions I'd like to ask you. And I think that's going to be technical side in the sense of when we consider best practices and when we talk about data security, what are the best practices for drone docs? And which ones do you find most critical?
Sure. Thanks, Scott, for that question. It's before answering the exact question, I would like to kind of create a base for all the data security concerns that stem from these drone dock operations. So one of the ways to think about it is the sensitivity of the data. So now if we are looking at the data which actually affects the operational control of the drone, that it has a very different ramification in terms of, let's say, the control link, the C2 link gets hacked and somebody gets control over my drone while I'm just sitting remotely, versus data which is more like media that is captured or the live video, which is quite sensitive in some cases, maybe because of its public safety operation that is actually capturing something like real-time crime data, which is going to be put as a evidence in court, and you don't want that data to be captured by anybody else. So depending on the use case, depending on what exactly the kind of data is, the severity and the sensitivity of that data kind of changes. And based on that, also the active security measures to counter that also do change. So there are two broad categories that we see. One is data at rest, and one is data while it is in transit. And against both of those, there are different measures that we have to take. I'll speak about data at rest first. Data in transit is something, I think there are some in next few questions we can address data at transit as well. So data at rest, it is more like what happens to all the images, videos that are captured on the drone. And when they are stored on the drone and then stored on the dock, and then we go to cloud, what happens to the data at each stage? So on the DJI drone side, as well as on the dock, the data is encrypted. So DJI has started this practice where the SD card is encrypted, and only the owner of the drone can decrypt that SD card. So even if the drone, somehow somebody gets access to the drone, they won't be able to pull out the SD card and like start copying that data. So that is one level where DJI has enabled from a hardware side at drone level the encryption of the data. But what happens when the data leaves the drone dock and goes to cloud or on a on-prem system? That is where we have brought in a lot of interesting data security practices from existing industries like banking, like finance, other industries. We have brought those same practices here to encrypt that data at rest, complying with the standards by government. So there also we see two levels of data protection. One is when this data is just some utility asset data or anything, there is one level of protection. For evidence that is collected as a part of public safety operations, there are even more standards and more like data security standards, even storage standards that we adhere to, which helps finally save this data or store this data in a safe manner while adhering to all those existing standards in public safety, or in this case for regular asset inspection. And we leverage a lot of functionality provided by AWS, Microsoft Azure as a cloud providers, and a lot of their encryption tools for that. But finally, the data is stored in cloud as SSL protected data. So there is no way anybody can just get access to that.
Okay, so that was quite a technical response. And I think what you're trying to say is you're trying to mitigate risk by using localized structures such as AWS servers that are fully encrypted. That's good to know. I think there may be a lot of questions on this particular implementation of encryption. You must have encountered, I would say, quite a few challenges. So can you share those challenges when you first started to implement a strategy with Flightbase? Tell me about implementing encryption for data transmission, in particular drone docks, because that's what we're talking about today. What were your biggest challenges for this type of technology?
So a lot of challenges come from working with drones and other systems from multiple vendors. Not all vendors. For example, in this case, DJI is one of the manufacturers, but there are also other drone manufacturers, docking station manufacturers, and everywhere the system that is sending the data is also part of that chain, which needs to be secured. The dock uploads the data, so we need to work on that side to ensure that when they are pushing the data, they're doing it over a SSL supported channel and not over a plain internet, like a plain HTTP connection. So the journey starts from there. Working with those systems has been mostly challenging. In case of DJI dock, it was easier, but in case of other docks, we had to do a lot of original work, support the manufacturers, OEMs, with the right tools, with the right the right tools to upload their data in a safe manner. And when it comes to storing that data in cloud or on-prem systems, most of that was not very challenging because these are typically solved problems in other industries. It was quite I would say the challenging part was to pick those standards. Implementation was not that big great the challenging part of it. The most important aspect was identifying what level of data security would each industry need. As I mentioned, public safety needs it at a very different level. So we're working with some really great government agencies and looking at their data standards for particularly evidence that is going to go to the court for, as a part of a trial. They have really stringent data storage and encryption and, all kind of regulations around that. So understanding all of that was all those requirements and bringing it together and creating that platform where all of those requirements would be met. I would say that was the most challenging part of it. Implementation, not so much, because this has been done many times over in many industries before this.
Understood. Yeah. So implementation is the easy part. I think maybe extending your answer to this, you could look at maybe the dynamic environments that are thrown to us. Depending on which part of the world determines the solution that's provided, in particular data security, because that is, I think, number one priority. Pejman will agree with me in this region in particular, number one priority for many public safety agents. They want control of that data. So in terms of that data, how would you say you better safeguard that? And in particular for public safety, I think there are many questions about data leaks now, and how people can get access to that data. So how would you say that maybe Flightbase would prevent that data from leaking?
So in terms of, it's quite, complex and dynamic scenario. One of the important sources of data is the drone and the dock itself, because on the drone, the data is generated and then it is transmitted wirelessly from dock, then it is uploaded to cloud or the on-prem systems. So we see, first of all, the hardware itself as the first point where we want to make sure that hardware is, secured from outside attacks, as well as given all the noise about data security concerns with the hardware itself, making sure that the hardware is not able to send data to any unintended server. So there are both of those which are concerns primarily for us, and we kind of tackle both using a special piece of hardware. We are coming with a special product soon. It will be called Flightbase Shield, where we'll be protecting the dock from outside network attacks. It would be designed, specially crafted system, basically network layer system, which will figure out with all the advanced firewalls, etc., will be able to protect against any unauthorized access to the dock from third parties, as well as it will ensure that the hardware is sending the data to the only intended server, be it the on-prem server or the cloud server. So that would ensure that, yep.
I think what might be good for end users and for clients looking to use this is to see where that data is going, to have a tangible, maybe a physical way of showcasing that data and where it is going. Because I think we might all agree in this panel today that there are major concerns about data security, and we all want to know exactly what is being done with that data. And it's good to hear Flightbase are implementing a strategy, Flightbase Shield, which will implement a rigid structure to prevent that data leaking. On top of what the manufacturer, for example, DJI already offers, one example, a local data mode for their product. But essentially, this is really important, and I'm going to probably touch on the subject again with our other panelists, because I think it's very important for this region. But Chris, I want to turn to you at this point, and I want to find out more about drone dock utilization in Arkansas, North America. Can you tell me a bit more about the utilization? Who are using these docks in your experience?
Yeah, thanks, Scott. I think here in the United States specifically, there's two industries, and they happen to be two of the same industries that started even the manual operations industry, and that's public safety and energy. There's a tangible value to drones, and then you plug that drone in 24/7 and you put it in a weatherproof box on top of a fire station. That value grows exponentially, right? So there's a clear value to life and property in public safety. And so we've already deployed, we've deployed about exactly 29 DJI docks so far, and the lion's share of those are in public safety. We do have some implementations in energy as well, specifically for solar inspections, right? If you can take a large solar farm, and instead of having to have your operations and maintenance technicians go out and manually fly it, pulling them away from actually managing the solar farm, and in some cases, these large battery implementations, et cetera, you're able to get a lot more value out of that. So, you know, Arkansas, unfortunately, we haven't deployed anything here, although if there's any Arkansas agencies online, you know how to reach me. They probably already know who we are and are working with us elsewhere. But we've got implementations in New York, Texas, Michigan, California, Nevada. Let's see, we got some in New Jersey, et cetera. So they're all over the country. And then the two industries that we're seeing them most often used, and like I said, it's where the industry kind of exploded here in the US, is public safety and energy. And then within public safety specifically, we're talking drones as first responder, or DFR, kind of a buzzword these days, where these DJI docks, at least in our case currently, are being implemented and integrated directly with CAD systems. CAD would be a computer-aided dispatch. And so you're able to actually, you know, have a 911 call come in. We're already getting that address. I'm a former dispatcher, so I still say we're getting that information through 911. The address is on our screen. And instead of putting a whole run card together, or I guess I should say even before a run card is put together, a run card would be battalion chief, engine, ambulance. That drone, the dock is already opening, the drone is going up, it's flying to that scene, and it's getting that initial eyes on. And that's just one example of that immediate tangible value to protecting life and property in the public safety industry.
Yeah, Chris, thanks. That's invaluable. And I think you touched up on the point that I wanted to raise with you. It's about access of that data, and speed and efficiency is number one. When you're rescuing people, when you're saving lives, and in particular fire rescue, as you're seeing, they want fast access to that data. So how do you balance the desire or the demand for access of data very quickly, and also balance that data security? How do you protect that data, but how do you get access to it very quickly? You've got any thoughts on that?
I've got more thoughts that we can go over in the next, what do we have, 42 minutes left, and I gotta save room for Vic and the other gentleman on here. I would say that we rely on software partners, you know, even after we've chosen the right hardware, which in our case, in our opinion right now, DJI docks are one of several really proven sort of natively secure systems, if you will. I'll get into that more in a second, but we rely on those software providers, and Diraj did a great job of sort of explaining what that looks like. And it's encryption on both sides, both there locally, while the data is at rest, even an on-prem scenario where we have an on-premise device, whether that's Flight-Based Shield, or if the customer wants to install their own compute module, however they want to do that. The beauty of the DJI dock specifically, and I could talk most intelligently about that because we've deployed so many of them, is it comes out of the box with the ability to connect to anything. So if the customer's a Microsoft customer, you can connect it to Microsoft Azure, AWS, whatever else you need, any other custom bucket. And so we rely on those software providers. You nailed it when you said that not only is the information critical, but we actually need to see the video, which is arguably probably the most sensitive component of a DFR program. If I'm a dispatcher and I'm sitting here in front of my screens and I can't reliably or quickly see that video, the drone does me no good on scene. And so encryption in transmit as well as at rest. SSL certificates are a great way to do that. You know, the DJI docks and the DJI hardware is already AES 256 encrypted. Diraj hit on it right away. Is there is some risk of that connection being compromised and being either listened to by somebody else or perhaps even taking control. But that's almost entirely mitigated with the encryption technology that's in place natively with DJI. You combine that with, let's say, Flight-Based in this case, who has an SOC 2 Type 2 compliant infrastructure. So now you know that your hardware is transmitting securely. You have AES encryption, which everything else in our world is using AES. It's the industry standard. That data is now safe. It's going from dock to drone securely. When that data comes back, or even real time through that dock up to a Flight-Based cloud, now it's encrypted over SSL. SSL is something that we've been using. It's in the industry wide. It's why there's HTTPS, right? So we're leveraging all of these industry standard security protocols. And really, at the end of the day, a DJI dock or anything else is just another IoT device. I've probably got 20 of them in my office here. It's just another connected device. And so it's absolutely critical that we have these conversations. How can we take a DJI dock or any other connected device and connect it securely? And we do that by choosing the right hardware and combining it with the right software. And of course, and I assume a question's coming, is how do you verify these things? How do you make sure that firmware updates aren't compromised? But you do that by properly managing and updating your infrastructure in a timely manner.
Yeah, those are fair points, to be honest, Chris. I think AES and SSL is a standard requirement, in particular for public safety. I assume then what you mean by the ability of it being very similar as other IoT things. And with that in mind, would you say that in terms of auditing your security and measuring, say, frequency and conformity to international standards, would you say that falls in line? Is it just as easy to conduct an audit for the DJI dock as it would be for your iPad tablet per se? What processes would be in place for that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would argue, and Diraj is the technical expert here, so he can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would argue that it's easier to audit the activity, the connections that your DJI dock or another dock is making through Flightbase than it is for me to make sure that my iPad didn't just download a bad update through some random app that I downloaded. You look at Temu, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitch, X, Twitter, whatever. All of these apps are just running just everywhere. I use a Mac. I mean, I've got apps all over the place. So I have an easier job of identifying and isolating any traffic going to or from my DJI dock or any infrastructure. And that could be one dock, that could be 1,000 docks. It doesn't matter. Flightbase, I can speak specifically. We've been working with Flightbase for a number of years. It is incredibly easy to go through the logs, whether that's on a recurring basis, setting up triggers, whether that just pipes another feed of data through an existing audit program. A lot of these public safety agencies, they obviously do hold a lot of evidence, right? So there's got to be some security protocols in there to check access to certain things. The DJI dock is yet another data feed, or any other dock through Flightbase. That's the beauty of the agnostic approach, is you've got one central location. You have all of your IP addresses, you have all your connection protocols. You can see it all right in front of you on the screen to make sure that that data is being protected, that it's not being accessed nefariously. And you also have that native peace of mind of SOC2 Type 2 compliance, leveraging Microsoft Azure or AWS, rather than the probably 40 apps I have on my iPad. Some I probably forgot that I even downloaded that are just on automatic update that can just run all day long, updating with no notification to me of a potential issue. And then even if you look at the firmware side, right? So I have been a proponent. You'll see me comment on Facebook and answer questions. Everybody will ask the day of a firmware update. Is it update? Can I update? Should I update? Can I update? Is it okay? Can I update? Guys, that just came out yesterday. I had a text message from a fire department in California yesterday who noticed that the DJI M30T was updated on February 22nd. This is US time. So that was 2 days ago. I said, why would you update today? Why would you be the first one, right? You just take your time, you put in good processes and protocols. Maybe you have a demo environment. You rely on partners like UVT. We've got our own fleet of docks. We're going to be updating on day 1, day 2, day 3. Let us break it and then come to you and put you on that most recent firmware. And then, of course, leveraging Flightbase to say, hey, we're seeing issues globally, right? I can speak to the United States and North America. Flightbase can speak globally. So if they say, hey, we're seeing an issue, they're going to let us know that, and we can tell our customers to hold off until somebody fixes it.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually, Chris. I was going to ask you about what strategy you would implement to update the dock. And I think it's the same when you're updating NVIDIA drivers for your computer and you get a green screen per se, or blue screen. It's are you willing to take those first steps to ensure that your clients have security in using it? So your advice would be just update straight away, or would it be take some time and wait for the professionals to do it and then advise?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends, right? If there's a firmware update that's solving a problem that you're having or something like that, then of course go ahead and update. And honestly, our partners are so good about involving our customer base in trying to resolve these issues. Like we had a small bug with one of our DJI docks. We had all the engineers from DJI, their North American solutions engineers, my sales rep, everybody was involved. We were testing, and then they finally released it. So rest assured that as an end user, as a customer, a lot of testing is going on behind the scenes. My recommendation to the end user is don't update on day 1 unless that update solves a problem that you're having, implements a new security feature, etc. DJI in recent history has not released a forced firmware update. I'm not aware of any manufacturer that's released a forced firmware update, because at the end of the day, we're operating in the aviation industry, right? So the last thing they want to do is release something that they just hit a button on a server and then a new release note PDF goes up in a zip file that you have to use and have that potentially ground or have an issue with your system. So I would encourage people to take your time, leverage the partners that you're working with, talk to your software providers, talk to your dealer, even, engage with the community, ask questions on Facebook, LinkedIn, get involved in these groups where you have other like-minded individuals. This panel is a great example. We've got North America, we've got Dubai with Scott and Pejman, and then we've got India with Diraj. This is a great user base right here. Build these communities amongst yourselves and talk to others that are using it. I am not a day one update guy. Even with Apple, who I have immense trust in, I'm letting a few million users hit that update button, and then I'm watching the Apple community, and that's weird. Your camera broke. Guess I'll update next week when Apple fixes it.
Amen. Yeah, I hear you on that. I think it's important to take a risk sometimes. I think your answer is valid to a certain point, Chris, but I think what I wanted to approach was look at the CCP Drone Act, countering CCP Drone Act that's just been released by in America. I think it's HR 2864, isn't it? Appropriately named. The problem this generates, and in particular for drone-based dock technology, is there are national security concerns. People are concerned about data. Where is it going? Yes, we have software provisions. We have software updates that mitigates any new protocols that have been introduced by people trying to sift that data, trying to gain access, whether that's from governments abroad or whether that's from software companies or whether that's from individuals, because wherever there are individuals, there may be malice, there may be intent to take that data. With that in mind, give an example, the DJI dock per se. How does that solution address national concerns, in particular America, considering this act that's in place? It's more rhetorical than anything else. We've already answered it, but I think many people may want to ask that specific question.
Yeah, well, I know Vic and I have heard countering CCP more times than we care to hear, and hopefully it goes away at some point. But yeah, so what Scott's talking about is House Resolution HR 2864, which is the Countering CCP Drones Act. Just for everybody in the U.S., it hasn't passed. There was one of the first hearings just happened about a week ago, and at the end of the day, that act, like just about every single one that's passed in our anti-DJI, anti-China, and really drone-centric laws and bills and legislation, it does nothing to protect Americans' data security. It doesn't address data security at all. It says, oh, is that made by, it doesn't even say that it's a drone necessarily. Is that device made by DJI, remote controller, payload, camera, drone, or whatever? It is? Okay, and then it's bad. That alone is way too short-sighted, right? You're basing all of these rules and regulations on where that device came from, the country of origin. I'm using an iPhone as my webcam, for example. This iPhone was made by Foxconn Technology in Shenzhen, China. Is that a problem? It's not. It's looking at my face. It's hearing me. It's seeing my room. It's seeing everything about me. So if that's not a concern, why is the act worried about another piece of technology that comes out of China in DJI products? I'll bring you back to what I said earlier. It's all about an IoT connected device. That's what we're using. All of these devices are connected to the internet. Why does one device that comes from one company pose a greater threat than another device out of the same country? And so speaking specifically of the DJI dock, with the way that act is written, the fact that it doesn't take into account all of the native security features, all of the encryption, all of the SSL certificates that Diraj has talked about that we use to connect this device, even the fact that you can there's a little cabinet on the DJI dock, you can install your own computer inside of that device. But if you read from our lovely federal government, they're basically saying, yeah, that doesn't matter because, even if you have a secure box, well, it's talking to that DJI thing, and, then your device could be compromised. It's absolutely foolish legislation because it does not take into account the data security of Americans. We need legislation, and I dare I say globally, we need legislation that promotes any device being able to connect securely. Any device that you plug into my wall, to my Wi-Fi, must be connected in a secure manner. And turns out we've been connecting DJI devices to infrastructures and networks across the globe for over 12 years now, and it's been perfectly safe with zero proven issue. I could go on. I'm gonna end there and let you guide the conversation because I get pretty fired up.
A can of worms, Chris. It's a can of worms, and you know what? I'd see a lot of synergy in what you're saying there. Give me conclusive proof that we're seeing this data going to going wanting, and I agree with you. I think we got to really put this in the mindsets of those that are using this technology to save lives. And, DOC technology is being used in certain instances to save people's lives. And what's more important to the legislators? Is it that principle, or is it the first responders losing the ability to use this technology and in turn to save those lives? And I'm very passionate about that. I've been working with this manufacturer for nearly 11 years now, and I think if I had any concerns, would I continue to believe in working with this type of technology? I would say otherwise. I wouldn't be here right now. So ultimately, it is a very controversial topic. I really wanted to ask you this, Chris, because I know you're heavily involved, and Vic, you're heavily involved in this as well with your discussions and panels and other areas which I'll introduce at some point. But Pejman and I in this region, we have similar concerns, primarily from public safety. And I think I speak for myself, but I'm going to let Pejman speak for AMT and his experiences shortly. First and foremost, in this region, when we speak about DOC technology, whether that is DJI or whether that are other solutions that we've been trying to implement for many years now, data must be secure, data must be local, and there is no compromise. So one thing to mention, I think this technology is ahead of its time in the sense that the background or the server-based protection is not to the standards that are required to manage this hardware yet. So AWS servers aren't really capable to offer that local centralized data capability to the level to which the client wants. So what are the clients doing? The clients are building their own infrastructure, bespoke infrastructure. So we're trying to work with software providers, as you mentioned, Chris, to create that bespoke solution. And that's been our biggest challenge to date. It's upskilling and it's understanding how this technology works, but also how it can integrate into their ecosystem. And there's no one who knows it more than Pejman, because he's on the hard end of the stick, so to speak. So Pejman is eyes and ears in terms of public safety, in particular Dubai. Pejman, I want to ask you a question on this, because it's tricky for yourself and myself integrating this technology in the Middle East. I feel that we are a bit behind the rest of the world in terms of legislation, awareness, capability, upskilling. These are great challenges for us, by the way. But can you say, we're talking about these physical challenges before. Can you tell me about public safety partners in the Middle East? How effective have they been in preventing unauthorized access into the data from DOC technology?
Absolutely. I was following all the conversation since the beginning, and I believe, as you mentioned, we have totally different experiences when it comes to North America, even China, or different regions, because it depends where this technology is coming, where the manufacturer is based, or where the cloud is based. When it comes to our region specifically, because everything is kind of, or most of the things are imported, the technology is imported, and everything is located in different part of the world. The hardware is coming from China, the cloud might be coming from US or somewhere else. The concerns are even more when it comes to law enforcement or security departments. The first drone in a box that we introduced in the market was actually requested by Dubai Police. We presented in GITEX 2018. It was a French technology. We brought it, and since then the challenges started. Actually, we were involved in those challenges: where to install, how to secure it, how to protect it. As of today, and since then, it's like almost 6 years that I can say, like 4 years, sorry, that we are involved in this challenge. All the time, because they wanted to make sure everything is in their hand. All the installation, whatever happened, were in their premises. So physically, they were inside the police base, or like a civil defense base, or like their own premises that are very much secured in different layers of security. Another project that we have in hand, which is not yet delivered, I will tell you the other challenges. But we started the construction, and it was asked for several different things. Enforce the steel fencing around the concrete-based security cameras, based on that, too many layers of security to just make sure nobody's even getting close to the dock. On top of all the securities that are mentioned by Dheeraj, and we know all from DJI or different manufacturers, AES 128, AES 256, all the encryptions and everything, still there are too many protections from the physical drones and physical dock, not to get access by the unauthorized people.
You think that's a problem, isn't it? Here, Pejman, they don't want to risk anyone penetrating these security protocols, and in particular the Middle East, and in I would say UAE and Dubai in particular, they want this to be the safest place on the planet. So for many of these public safety agents, they're concerned about what constitutes as sensitive data, and in particular on drone docks, when they're not manned, they're remote, albeit they have physical edifices surrounding them, cameras, as you mentioned, fences, walls, constructions to prevent those outside accessing that data. What steps are taken to minimize the collection and storage of that data? So the physical storage of that information, say on the aircraft itself, or how do you collect that data? But how are they managing that in your experience?
Actually, when it comes, when we talk about the data security, we have to see who is the user. I mean, when you are a construction company, when you work in AEC, you may not concern about that. You have a drone to be operated manually, or a dock you have on the site to be flown every other day or every other week to go around and take some photos or videos to see the progress. You don't mind if even 1% somebody can break into it. But when you are a police, when you are a law enforcement, then not only the photos, videos are important for you, but also even the telemetry or the routes or the heat map of the drone flying is important. So our first proposal to police was, okay, we can just save all the photos and videos when it's coming to the dock operation. We save everything on the local storage on your own server, but let the communication and the other rest of the protocols happening as it is on the cloud or based on the current system. And they didn't accept. Just strictly, they said even the data, even the control, even the telemetry, nothing should be going out of their premises. So therefore, they wanted to save and to keep everything on their own server.
So they don't want cloud, but they want the ability to use cloud, but they want that accessible only locally. That's been the biggest demand, you would say. That's exactly the biggest challenge of that.
It's a very big challenge. Actually, not only they don't allow the cloud, I'm talking about the highest level of security when we talk about the police specifically, or like the security departments who are taking care of like very high risky premises. So not only they don't allow the access to the cloud, but also they don't allow any access to the internet. So all the communications, everything should be through the intranet, their private network. All the SIM cards which are provided are based on the private, even cellular network, the fiber optics, all the connections, everything. So therefore, you don't have access. I mean, as a software manufacturer, the hardware, okay, is there. But for the communication and the software or the system behind, this is the challenge that we are working on, like hand to hand with Flightbase. In last couple of months, Dheeraj is doing his best, and his team, of course, to just make the system independent from all the resources and components which are available on internet. You have to invent the wheel from the scratch, because you don't have any of them. Dheeraj is laughing because I know how much the challenges he had. So no cloud, no internet, nothing. Everything should be secured within their own private network and connections.
That comes with the territory, doesn't it? It's and Dheeraj, it comes with the territory here. We want something that's blind, but also serves us a pizza and Diet Coke.
Yeah, good analogy. Yeah, like just to add a bit there, initially when PageOne came up with this, like we need it without internet, and I was like, why do you even want to use it without internet? Because the real power is in when it is connected, right? You take in IoT, it's like internet, right? You take out that internet out of the object, the things, and then it just becomes things when they are not connected. But
Sorry,
I think
IoT without I.
yeah, IoT without I.
Of
Yeah,
things.
yeah,
That's definitely it.
OT.
yeah. OT. So like, but I think a lot of those concerns are quite real, because it's not just Middle East. A lot of critical organizations in US as well, for that matter, utility companies, those who have had a lot of cyber attacks on them for their critical infrastructure, they are also thinking about adding all this technology only in on-prem air-gapped mode, not in like internet connected. They don't want that, because doesn't matter how much security you add, if they have that link with external network, they think, back of the mind, since it's $1 billion infrastructure, they think that it can be hijacked or anything. So that is why they don't want to do that. And catering to those, I think, concerns that these enterprises have is the key to taking this technology forward. That is what is going to give the peace of mind to these users. So yes, on-prem, doing completely air-gapped deployments, and also in some cases in-country cloud deployments for just data regulations. These are not data security concerns, but more like data regulations. For example, UAE doesn't want any data to go out even on US data servers or EU data servers. Similarly, UK also has a lot of those similar concerns. They don't want data to be hosted on US servers.
Sorry to interrupt. Not even US cloud, but also we talked about the local cloud provider, which is also from the government, but also even that one was rejected.
Yeah. Yes, of course. Yeah.
You're pretty dry on the capability here. It's very tricky for you to manage the expectations of the clients, yet also implement this strategy of using drone duck technology.
I think again,
yeah,
that is where the challenging part is. But I think as a technology provider, we had to rise up to the expectations that customers have, so that they can have that peace of mind. Everybody wants, they are very, very positive about the technology. It's just that they want in a manner where their jobs are not at risk. Nobody's going to come and in audit question them, why did you do this, etc. So I believe as a software provider, we are able to do some of that. Took a long time, but I think with PageOne, we are able to do some good work there. Yeah.
I think it's important actually to find the champions within the businesses, people who are willing to risk and put forward this technology to develop it. After all, this technology is being developed at the risk of no legislation in place in some instances, and there's no BVLOS. And, it's not really mandated anywhere. I can speak for America, I can speak for Europe, I can speak for the Middle East and Far Asia as well, in the sense that BVLOS is something that's still on the horizon. We have individual use cases. We're actually developing it right now in Dubai with Dubai Future Foundations, start trying to set a BVLOS application. There are instances, but it's not widespread. So the technology has kind of come before the legislation can react. And we've been saying this for a long time, legislation is slow to react. So hopefully by us discussing this more, I always believe in reiterating, repeating, relaxing. The 3 R's, that's my ethos in life. The more you do it, the more you get the message across. And Vic, I think I really want to, pick your brains here, because you're steeply involved in legislative regulation in terms of discussions in the States, UAV Law News, you're Director of Legislative Affairs at UAS Colorado. There are just some of the examples. So you talk about this technology and, what challenges are presented if you are drafting regulations, and say, what are those challenges compared to manned drones? What's the difference between a dock and a manned drone?
It's kind of interesting. It's similar but different. I love being on this panel. One, I'm probably learning more than I'm going to ever teach here. It's data security is not my bailiwick, but it's fun to be able to have to get in here and look into this stuff. So on the regulatory side of things, I utilized some of my sources. Went out and I reached out to the FAA waiver office, one of my contacts there, and said, "Look, what's on the horizon?" And at this point, they're not planning on anything dock specific at the federal level. We already have regulations in effect under Part 107, which is the commercial operation, as long as you stay under that 55-pound or 25-kilo payload limit. That they care about things like ops over people. You can be flying over people, ops over moving vehicles, beyond visual line of sight. Speaking of the Holy Grail, BV loss. That's the things they care about. But when it comes to dock specific type stuff, weather and pre-flight really take center stage on a waiver application for this type of operation. One of the things we're supposed to do as remote 107 pilots is inspect our aircraft before it flies every single time. How are you going to do that remotely? How are you going to be able to push a button? So they want that satisfied. The FAA wants that satisfied. What's the weather like? Hey, you know what? You're in Arkansas and I'm in Denver, and Chris has a project here. He's not going to hire me to go out and check the weather. I don't have to look out my window and go, yeah, Chris, go ahead, fly. It's fine. You have to be able to do that kind of stuff. But the FAA also understands that the technology has much more in front of the, has developed much faster than regulatory ability. And they'll do things like accept remote cameras to be able to do those kinds of things. And honestly, they aren't really wanting to do a dock-specific set of regulations because there are regulations already in place that can handle what we need it to do, and they don't really care that much about data either. The FAA is a safety and excuse me, a safety and education agency. They're not an enforcement agency. They're not a data agency. They're not a privacy agency. But one of the things we've talked about is, what about the C2 link, the command and control link? The FAA at some point is very likely going to say, hey, you know what? That needs to be secure because that is now a safety issue. If you have your C2 link hacked, hey, guess what? There goes your $100,000, if you have one of the bigger ones, flying away somewhere. And that's a security issue, and that's a safety issue, and that's what the FAA really cares about. We do have an agency called the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, TCIA. They did put out a suggested set of data security for personal data. Will that likely end up as in regulation somewhere, either via the Department of Commerce or the FAA? Probably. And actually, I'll even go as far as say I hope so, because this stuff definitely needs to be addressed at the federal and the state level. Regulation is definitely behind technology, as always.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I think it's a good point there, actually, in the sense that the regulatory bodies aren't that interested in the micromanagement of the type of technologies, but we are. So there's a disconnect there, would you say, Vic? And you say there's a disconnect there in terms of what this technology can do and their interest in that technology. Could there also be misconceptions as to why they don't want to use this technology, why there are concerns about data security? Because they're not well informed, they're not interested, so they don't want to know.
I don't think the FAA doesn't want to know. So, I think that's kind of a non sequitur. They definitely want to know because, again, it's all about safety. It's all about education. But I think when it comes to the public perception of the drone in the box, the docks, that kind of stuff, we are in a very good place as an industry to get out in front of things, get out in front of the fears, get out in front of the data security things that the general public in general cares about. Is my data, is my personal data secure as a delivery? Let's say it's a delivery drone that's in a box, or even a security drone. Where's my personal data? Is that secure? In the past, as an industry here, especially in the United States, we've had to play catch up. People see drones like, oh no, we have to go in and say, no, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. And we're always being reactive instead of proactive. I think when it comes to docs, we can really get out in front of the general public and get out in front of big business who might use these things and say, look, this is how it's going to work and this is where it's going to be good. So I think we're in a good place, either regulatory or even public relation wise, for doc use in the United States.
Yeah, okay, that's a good point. What about your organization then? So if you're using doc technology, what are your data security practices? So, you say we're reactive. Are we just reacting, or are you being proactive in that sense as well?
Well, I don't use docs. I'll leave Chris out. That's Chris's thing. So you want a doc? Yeah, call Chris. I have no desire to work in the doc sphere. Thank you very, very much. But personally, my data security, I have to do some things like some of the places I shoot. I'm a photographer, videographer. That's what I do. Some of the places I shoot, I have to be careful of the imagery. We were at Denver International Airport. We flew inside the terminal about 3 weeks ago for the new security systems there. And we had to tick a lot of boxes. We had to cross a lot of T's. We had to dot a lot of I's. And we have to make sure that the security, what we're showing, isn't out in public. Personal data for my clients and that kind of thing, it's all kept secure, that kind of thing. But when it comes to the docs, that use, I'm not using it per se. Colorado is not looking into it either. We do have, just like California and the other states, we do have our personal data privacy regulations. But personally, myself, no, I'm not going to be using docs. But I see it happening. I think it's going to grow pretty quickly once we get this up and running faster.
Vic, what is your perception? You're not using doc technology, but what is your perception of it? Because you are an operator and you like to be in charge of that aircraft. So this, in a sense, is disruptive technology. It's maybe taking away that necessity for an operator in certain instances. It won't take away all of that. It's another string to the bow of an organization, per se. I want to start off with you. I'm going to ask everyone, actually. We can close this conversation. What are your perceptions of doc technology, and how can security concerns be addressed? I'll start off with you, Vic.
My perception is it's going to be vertical specific. Here in Colorado, we've got ranchers and cattlemen and farmers. Their doc technology stuff and their security is going to be so much different than just few miles down the street from me, have a federal prison. A few miles further, we have a high security federal prison. Some of the worst of the worst of the worst. We live in my state right now, luckily under lock and key. Their data security is going to be a lot different than mine. Absolutely. And it's very, very vertical specific in that. I'm not sure I answered your question on that. I apologize.
Oh, it's a really tough question to ask. I just want your honest opinion. What do you think of doc technology? Do you like it? Do you not like it?
Oh, I love it. I love it. I don't think will it take some jobs? Yes, I think so. I think Diraj, who said something, maybe it was Chris, talked about the solar fields. Yeah, it's gonna make it much easier to fly a solar field every single day. Panel number 7A isn't working. Push the button, go check it. Let's throw it up and check it. But I think it's going to add jobs on the margin. I think it's going to create more use cases. Absolutely. And I don't think it's going to take jobs. It's going to be disruptive, but I think it's going to be disruptive in a good way. Disruption's not always bad.
Yeah, I've been saying this for a long time. People worry that drones are going to take jobs. I think they're just going to reskill people. I think you're going to enjoy your job more by using drone technology, but the doc mitigates the use of that person. But then you can re-skill that person to work in a command center. So again, it's not taking away jobs. It's just diverting them.
Changing them. Challenging us.
Exactly. It's challenging, isn't it? Pejman, would you agree with that statement?
Actually, I cannot argue that the doc is a game changer, especially when it comes to the first response for the data, for the law enforcement. There are lots of scenarios that when we are presenting the technology to the law enforcement and to the security departments, that you cannot do it with the manual operation. If you have a drone and you have it in the patrol car, you cannot do it. So there are too many scenarios that can be deployed only with the doc. So definitely it's a game changer.
Chris, what do you think? You are the man who uses the docks a lot, as Vic said. So other than Pejman's incredibly difficult challenges, it seems that your use of docks are somewhat less limited.
Yeah, so I think I was actually just drafting a comment here through the. I'll just say it right now. I'll say that that drone docks absolutely will. The question was to me, right, Scott? Yeah. Okay. Just want to make sure I got kind of excited on the comment.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. So
drone docks and robotics will absolutely create jobs. All these systems do is they move the human to the human element of any job that we're doing. The human element is not the dull, the dirty, and the dangerous. Let the robots and the drones handle that. And even the mundane, I would add, right? That's the dull part of that. Drones and robots are good at repetitive tasks. Humans are historically and statistically not good at repetitive tasks. We need to think, we need to improve, we need to innovate. And I think, also kind of to the drone security piece, I was going to interject earlier. It seems like people forget that all a cloud is a server in a highly secured infrastructure in a closet, right? It's the same server that I have in my closet over here. That's the cloud for me, right? I can access that from anywhere. So, but to answer the question, I think my perspective is drone docks and robotics as a whole, but drone docks specifically are going to absolutely change the way the world works. There's no question about it. I don't care who makes the drone that you're talking about, who makes the dock you're talking about. They are absolutely going to change the way the world works. It's going to free up humans. It's going to protect humans, whether that's through DFR programs or keeping a human off of a 1,000-foot tower to inspect a light bulb or to make sure that a cable has not been disconnected. They will absolutely change the world. And I think they're easy to connect in a secure manner, just like everything else in our lives has been connected. And it's going to take conversations like this with very talented professionals like I've been joined with on this panel to lead that charge and to educate. And I appreciate everybody having us here.
I appreciate that, Chris. I think it's true. I think we're all nodding our heads furiously here. I think it's the most nodding we've done this session so far. And of course, testament to the expansion of jobs and capabilities in this specific section within the drone industry is Dheeraj himself. Flightbase are here primarily because the utilization of dock technology, I would say. You might disagree, but I think one of the biggest utilizations for flight-based software solutions are through dock technology. So that's a argument sewn and wrapped up there. There are new opportunities, there are new avenues, whether direct or subsidiary, that are applicable to this dock technology. So we are. I'm going to ask you, Dheeraj, your opinion, but for myself to finish on what I think of this, I think. I agree full-heartedly with what Chris mentioned. It's going to add jobs. It's going to add new skills. Today's generation are very different to even my generation. They're a lot more into IoT. They're a lot more into technology. And of course, this technology is as disruptive for the means as which they are communicating. So I think what is happening now is you're seeing a lot of maybe generational misconception in the sense that dock technology is disruptive. It's innovative. It's ticking all the boxes in terms of security, but I think those are not maybe is skilled in this area of the industry understand that it is going to tick all these boxes. It is going to add security. It is going to add more capability. It's going to remove the incompetencies. I think that's a bit harsh. I'm going to say a human factor in many elements, but it's going to add new skills. You get where I'm coming from. Sorry, yep. It is a Saturday. Dheeraj, tell me, what do you think about dock technology? How would you end this session in terms of what you think about what we discussed today?
Yeah, so just I agree with what everybody kind of put together, but I have a slightly different take. What I see is, it's not going to be just new skills. Fundamentally, with docks, drones will be operating at a really huge scale. So until now, drones have found use cases in many industries, but you haven't seen real scale of that yet. Fundamental factor is the human limit, which is how many trained pilots can you have? How many of those trained pilots are going to up at 2 a.m. when there is a burglary or when there is a alarm call that goes on a 911 call center? So that human factor is now going to be removed. Now it is going to be even like huge number of drones that will be powered through docks will be taking to the skies every night, every day, all around the day. And that is going to create many more jobs, because then there won't be like take any city in the US, any major city. How many drones do you see flying every day? That number would go many multifolds. And that is where new jobs will be created. That is where a lot of maintenance, a lot of other stuff will be required on top of that. So it's not just new skills, it's also the new scale that is going to bring in. I would say we would see even more people joining the drone industry with that. That is how I believe. And the other important thing is we'll have to be, it is going to take, it's a gradual journey. We will have to empathically understand the data security and other concerns of users, the decision makers, and work with them, give them, I think, Scott, I like the word that you use, tangible visualization of where the data is going, so that they understand whether whatever their concerns around data going to unnecessary servers, are they true, not true, what is happening to their security. So those are some of the amazing ideas that we'll have to work on, and kind of get those users, early adopters on this bandwagon. And I believe this technology is truly going to revolutionize drone industry. That I have a lot of bias there, because that's what we at Flightbase have been working on for about 10 years now. But I think listening to all of you today, that kind of strengthens my belief in the same story again. Yeah, thank you.
Well, let's just hope this is the end of the beginning and the start of a new industrial revolution, the revolution of drone technology and its implementation across all walks of life, for a good reason. And I think all of us in this panel today are stout believers in using this technology to improve processes, to improve workflows, to save lives, to capture better data, and also to do that not discreetly, but with security, and also with the ability to make sure that data does not get in the wrong hands. And we're doing all we can to manage that in each of our avenues and areas and regions within the world. So I want to thank you very much for your inputs today, gentlemen. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. I'm honored you've got so much experience. So I'm learning a lot as well. Vic, Pejman, Chris, Dheeraj, thank you so much for your discussions today. Very insightful.